Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of the Cherry Pickers. Gary Altuzer here with Jim Bailey, back for another episode looking at week 15 in the NFL. We're going to talk about the lines, our best picks against the spread, some teasers, some weather updates, injury updates, and all things NFL this week as this NFL season is winding down. I don't know about you, Bailey, but I'm really shocked every year at how fast the season goes. This has been no different this season. Uh, and we know it's getting to the end of the season when we have some Saturday games. And we had 3 Saturday games yesterday. When college football season is done, the NFL always snags up some Saturdays. And this week is no different. So why don't we start talking about everybody's favorite local team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and what happened yesterday? You got a chance to watch the game, and you're a big Steelers fan. What'd you see?
Yeah, that was not a fun experience. It's a huge game for Pittsburgh too. I mean, they're right there in the playoffs. They were in as of this week coming in. After losing that game, I saw they dropped to like 11th. I mean, it really put a huge blow into their playoff hopes. Started out well. They had a pretty good drive early in the game, went up 7-0, and they blocked a punt that led to another touchdown, 13-0, pretty early. All downhill from there. I mean, Trubisky looked awful. He really did. I mean, he missed so many throws. For a veteran quarterback, he has real poor footwork. His feet are just all over the place. The offensive line protection, as usual, isn't the greatest. He just doesn't really handle the pressure well. Uh, some people say like Trubisky is better than Pickett. I don't know. Like after watching these last few games, if I had to choose, I think Pickett's better. I think Trubisky is just, I don't know. He's just lost it if he's ever had it in the first place. Be interesting to see what they do next week. They put Mason Rudolph in for the last couple minutes of the game, which I know a lot of the fans have been calling for Rudolph. Is he an upgrade over Trubisky? Maybe, but he's not going to be a difference maker. You know, he kind of is what he is at this point. If he was a true top quarterback, we would have seen more glimpses of it from now. Pickett's still looking like out a few weeks, so man, I don't know. Poor performance. Indy just ran it down their throats too. The second half just played bully ball, blew Pittsburgh off the ball. Almost looked like this defense kind of quit. They're out there so much. The offense struggles. They get worn down. It's kind of a pattern late in the games. They just start to get worn down and get run over late in the games.
That was a big win for Indy because now they got wins over Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore. All were playoff teams in the AFC. I mean that team's still playing well, even with Gardner Minshew not really playing that great this season. They got a pretty talented roster overall. It's no surprise that they won. But I just seeing the Steelers team fall off a cliff like they have. It's a little bit shocking to see how bad they've fallen off, and since Pickett's been out, especially, you got to give the guy a little bit more respect now. Seeing what they've done with other quarterbacks in there, and they played so bad that maybe he is a little bit better than people think, and he's just been dealing with a really poor roster and poor coaching. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a Steelers fan, but that's kind of what stands out to me.
Yeah. Pickett at least protects the football, and somehow they find ways to win games, it seems, with him in there. I, I don't think or know if Pickett's really, going to be like a top tier quarterback. It's hard to see him really develop. And he's probably, his ceiling is probably just an average starter, but I think he's better than Trubisky. But it'll be interesting to see with Pittsburgh and Tomlin. His contract is up after next year. Historically, whenever the coaches go into their last season, they either extend them or, well, they don't fire
Yeah.
anybody. So they'll have a decision to make. I mean, he's either going to get an extension or they got to come to a crossroads. What are they going to do with him? I mean, a lot of the fan base, of course, and even local media, national media are starting to say, hey, might be time to go in a new direction. It's hard to imagine Steelers without Tomlin, but it's getting to that point. I mean, you have 3 playoff wins in the last 14 seasons. If you take out the first few years, which I know that's part of his resume, but it's hard to see any coach survive what has gone on the last 14 years. They haven't had a losing season, which is what he kind of hangs his hat on. They're always respectable, but it's getting to that point where it might be time to move on from them.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to make that decision. I don't know what the answer is there either because it's not like they're a great NFL coaches just hanging out, waiting to be called up. You know, we see it every year. These teams make these changes, and it doesn't work out. Somebody who was successful somewhere else. You know, Frank Reich, I think he had a pretty decent tenure in Indy, and he was given a different quarterback every season, and he was still competitive, and he still took them to the playoffs. And I thought that was a good hire for Carolina. And gosh, what a disaster that was! What a just absolute dumpster fire. So it's not like there are guys out there waiting to be called up to be a coach. I mean, unless you take a chance on a young guy, but that doesn't always work either. So it'll be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does. I mean, he's been here for, what'd you say, 14 seasons?
17 seasons now. That's an
Is it 17?
eternity,
Okay.
an eternity
Wow.
in NFL coaching life. I mean, that's the thing. It might just need a new voice. It's just kind of gotten stale. And you're right. If they got rid of him, some of them would love to snatch Tomlin up and hire him as a
Oh,
coach. I
yeah.
mean, he would get a job right away, which I think might be good for him too. Just a new situation, get him a new team, because he's obviously not a terrible coach. I mean, he's at least a solid NFL coach. There's no doubt. It just might be time where the message has gotten stale and everybody just needs to change the scenery.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there, and if the Steelers rally to win the last few games that they have to keep that streak alive or not. I'm sure Tomlin's going to be coaching his butt off to make sure that happens. Whether he admits it or not, that's definitely something that he cares about. I
I'm
mean, that's
sure.
yeah. Okay, so let's move into this the games today, and this evening. We've got 6 system picks here. Last week we had a great week. We went 5-2. Bailey's best bet hit, Bailey's teaser hit, and then we had a winning record with the system picks as well. So we did well last week. Hopefully you, Bailey, hopefully you made a little bit of cash on your own, put some money on your own. Your thoughts there, made some money. Denver came through with the best bet of the week, and then that teaser come through really nice too. Both of them kind of comfortable. This week, let's start with the Falcons. The Falcons are -2.5 playing Carolina. Division game. Falcons are one of these teams that they seem to just kind of find ways to win games. They're not doing anything flashy, and they're not, they don't have a great record out there, even a game under 500, but they're still winning a lot more games than you would expect them to win. I think that their coach has done a great job. That coaching staff, I think they get the most out of that, out of the roster that they have. They don't have a great quarterback situation at all, but they do run the ball well, and they control the clock. That's one thing that Falcons team does, is they burn clock all game long. And this Carolina team, I mean, they are so bad right now. I don't know if they got any motivation to do anything right. And the Falcons are still playing for that division title. They lost last week to the Bucks in a really tight game that really the Bucks shouldn't have won. There were some magical things that happened to give Tampa that win. But I think Atlanta's got a heck of a lot more to play for tonight, and the system likes them at -2.5. You have any thoughts on this either way?
Well, number one, this is a big weather alert. So, I'll tell you, first thing I do on Sunday is get up, check the weather report. This one is rain, winds. It looks ugly. It's certainly going to be a factor. This line was 3 earlier in the week and went down to 2.5. So I think the rain and the wind might be a factor. It always just throws more variance into the game when there's weather like this. It kind of favors the underdog, or just more random stuff's going to happen. You'd think the rain would kind of help Atlanta. Obviously, a running team, they love to just run if at all possible. Carolina, I mean, Bryce Young, every time I watch them play, frankly, he's just looked awful. I mean, he's just sailing balls all over the place, looks super uncomfortable. Obviously, hard for a rookie to come in and play in the NFL. Carolina does not have really any notable weapons on offense. Have to think their fans are kicking themselves for not drafting Stroud.
Yeah.
Looking how well Stroud's played. Of course, it's way early for Young. Obviously, he has a lot of talent, but right now he's just really struggling. Man, almost any team in the league, I'd be happy to lay a couple points against Carolina. Only laying 2.5 here. Like you said, Atlanta's still playing for the division championship. Carolina's got to be checked out by now. Atlanta 2.5 looks like a pretty good bet.
Yeah, I can't see anybody trying to put money on Carolina. I don't know what would, the only bright spot they've had all year is Adam Thielen. He's played great for them. He's been the safety valve for Young. But other than that, that team hasn't done anything right all year. They got one win over Houston in a spot where it was kind of desperation time. And I think they were coming off of a bye and they won a close game there against the Texans. But I'm riding with the system on this one. I'm taking Atlanta minus 2.5, 100%. I feel pretty confident in that, unless we get some crazy weather like we talked about last week. That Steelers Dolphins game back 17 years ago or so, whenever they had that 3-0 game. Other than that, I don't see how Atlanta doesn't win this game. But hey, it is a division game. Who knows? Maybe Carolina wants to play the spoiler. I'm not touching that. I'm not touching Carolina money this season at all.
Yeah, I remember last week we noted that line movement in the Carolina Tampa Bay game. So Carolina was getting 6 by kickoff. They're only getting 3.5. A lot of money had come in on Carolina for some reason. I mean, I don't know really what they're seeing. I'd imagine it was more a bet against Tampa Bay laying that many points. But Carolina did cover. They end up covering I think they lost by 4 or 5, something like that. They end up covering the original spread. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how they play today. It's hard to imagine them having any kind of motivation to really go out and play their best football.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. That NFC South is a terrible division, the worst division in football, if you ask me. So anything can happen, but we're going to roll with Atlanta minus 2.5. Next up, we're going to take, I don't know, the media darlings of the last month or so because of their quarterback. The New York Giants getting 5.5, heading down to New Orleans to play the Saints. Tommy DeVito won again last week, was able to beat the Packers in that game. I wasn't really a believer. I thought the Packers were playing well, but some things happened in that game that seemed to happen to teams that are on a roll that were favored the Giants, and the Giants were able to pull out that win. We've now got 4 weeks of information that we can use, which we talked about last week. We needed 4 weeks of information to be able to bet on a game with the system with the same starting quarterback. Now DeVito has that, and they're flying high right now. They're getting 5.5 points, heading down to the Saints in New Orleans. Now that's a tough place to play, but New Orleans has not looked well lately. They have really left points on the field. They've got guys banged up and hurt. Derek Carr's not playing good. He got booed by the crowd there last week. They really I think people there are frustrated with him, and Dennis Allen's not. I'm not sure why they hired that guy in the first place. When he was with Oakland, he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything that showed he should be given another chance. Now, he's a good defensive coordinator. Don't get me wrong, but he just hasn't put anything together there in New Orleans. And they do have some talent on that team, but I know you checked into some injuries. They're going to have some people out today, aren't they?
Yeah, specifically Chris Olave. He's a true game time decision. They're going to see how he looked in warmups. When we went on the air, there still hadn't been the inactive report out. So he's really 50-50. It looks like even if he does play, he's going to be pretty limited. And it's looking more like doubtful. They're already without Michael Thomas at wide receiver. So if Olave doesn't play, I mean, they're razor thin at wide receiver. They got Shaheed, but the other guy that was in there, I've never even heard of him. DeVito's looking pretty solid. Last week was actually the first time that I really got to sit and watch a Giants game when they played on Monday night with DeVito, and he's got more physical ability than I had realized, particularly with his running with his legs. He's pretty quick. I mean, he's not just a total stiff that the media would kind of lead you to believe. Obviously, he's limited, but he's got some ability. Giants may be getting Darren Waller back. They've been without him. I really like that pickup for them in the offseason. I thought he was going to help their team a lot. Hasn't played much, been injured. So we'll see if he can make an impact at all. Giants getting 5.5. I mean, they're rolling. It's tough to know what to make of this Saints team. Kamara's really good back. Defense is always solid, but yeah, I like the Giants here. I think they're rolling well enough. 5.5 points is a ton in the NFL. So yeah, I think it's a good system pick.
They're playing indoors. They're rolling here. That we got to remember they have the coach of the year. From the Dayball was the coach of the year last year. He coached his butt off to get that team in the playoffs and then win a game in the playoffs. They beat Minnesota. That was a monumental feat. Now things have really went down this season. as far as wins and losses. And some of these games were really, really ugly. The losses, but whatever was happening, they seem to settle down. Whether or not it's DeVito, especially, or it's just kind of things they've kind of figured some things out. Who knows? But they are playing well. They've got. They don't have anything at receiver, really. I mean, really,
Yeah.
they got Waller at tight end. They got Barkley in the backfield, but they don't have a receiver. Their offensive line isn't good. They do have one really good offensive lineman. He's been in and out of the lineup, I think. But other than that, they really don't have much on offense. But the Saints team, it's just I don't know, disappointing. They're if you look at their roster top to bottom and their best players, they should be, heading towards like a 10-7 season is what they
Yeah.
should be heading towards and winning this division. And they're not even above 500 right now. So getting almost a touchdown. I mean, heck, if you want to buy the hook and make it 6 to feel better, I wouldn't even blame you for doing that. But we're going to take them plus 5.5 as of right now. So that'll be our second official pick. The next system pick here, we're going to go to the Chiefs. They're sitting at minus 8.5 right now. And last week there was a lot of controversy with them. And I just saw that Mahomes and Reed were both fined by the league. Reed got $100,000 fine. Patrick Mahomes a $50,000 fine for criticizing the refs on that offensive offsides call, which it was technically correct. He was offsides, but it's something that they don't really call. They've only called, I don't know how many, a handful of times in the last decade has that been called in any games. I think Andy Reid said that it only been called once on him in his whole career. So I think that's what, because the NFL is so inconsistent on when they make these calls. It's not that I see everybody saying, oh, Patrick Mahomes is a crybaby. He's crying about a flag that was actually deserved and that you could see on tape. Yes, he was actually offsides. Okay, we get that. But how many times has it happened where they didn't call it? And why did they wait to the fourth quarter to call it? And why did they wait, on a play that put Kansas City ahead to win the game, essentially, assuming their defense holds? That's what the big controversy was there. So a lot of eyes on them this week, but they are playing against the Patriots. And this line has moved down. It was at 9.5 earlier in the week, and now it's at -8. System loves them at -8. They're just too good of a team and way too talented to not take this line right now. And I can imagine that Mahomes and Reed want to get the attention off of that game last week, off of that call, off of their fines. Hey, let's go out there and play a great game. Let's blow these guys out and get the focus back on us as a team.
Yeah. In my opinion, the Mahomes Reed flipping out on the ref was really a culmination of a few weeks, it seems, of bad calls for them. I mean, the week before that Packers game, bomb down the field, key moment in the game, and the wide receiver just gets mugged. After the game, Kansas City kind of took the the high road and said, "Oh, it's a tough job. I'd rather them just let people make plays, no big deal." And then a week later, they have another huge penalty on them. So I really think it was more like a culmination of frustration. Never see Reed or Mahomes really lose their cool like that. It was kind of surprising to see. Patriots coming off the win against Pittsburgh. They're you've been on them all year. You don't want to not bet them whatsoever. Even when the system said we should bet the Patriots, like their offense is just that bad. Like, no, I'm good. So here's your chance. We get to bet against the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, their defense has been playing well all year. That New England defense is still good. Bill Belichick is still a good coach. He's still a good defensive mind. They just can't figure things out on the offense. I don't know they just, man, Zappy or Mac Jones or whoever, I was waiting to see Brian Hoyer suit up for him again before the end of the season. But they can't get anything put together on offense. They don't have any playmakers on offense. They really don't have anything. And, this has kind of happened his whole career, Belichick's whole career. He doesn't evaluate offensive talent in the draft well, and he never has. He named me a wide receiver that he drafted that did well for a long period of time in New England. All those guys that did well, Moss and Welker and Amendola, and those guys were all brought in as free agents. I don't know, Edelman. Maybe they drafted Edelman. I don't know. I can't remember if he was there, if he was like an undrafted free agent that came in there. But He's never really done well with the offensive side of the ball, but whoever he put out there, Brady made it work. And Brady made it work really, really well. Well, guess what? You don't have Tom Brady anymore. And you can't just throw these whoever guys in there that you're getting with a cheap contract or whatever and expect things to work out. It's not working out now. So they can't really get anything going. The only bright spot I've say they've had lately is Zeke. He's been playing well. He's been running the ball well for them. He's been catching the ball out of the backfield. I saw a stat the other day that said Raheem Mostert is like 3 or 4 years older than Zeke. I would never in a million years have guessed that. He's only 28 years old. The guy's still young. He's still young enough to play running back in this league and do well. So other than him, I don't really see anything that's been happening well on offense for them. But Kansas City's still Kansas City. We talk about this every week. The Rice kid looks like he's got something special sitting there. He could really be good. We know that the tight end position is where Kansas City thrives, but Kelsey's just not looking like Kelsey this year. They're still making it work. I don't see how they don't win this game. I mean, 8 is a lot of points in the NFL, to give up, but I still think that the taste in their mouth from the last 2 weeks has got to be just really bitter right now. And these guys still think that they can win another Super Bowl. They're going to go out there and throw the kitchen sink at these guys.
Oh yeah, I mean they certainly are still in the mix for the AFC and the Super Bowl. And you're right, you'd think they have to be playing it, firing all cylinders coming out the gates, wanting to get back on track because they've not looked real well. Defense still playing pretty well, but offense, you can tell it's just struggling. It's tough to see a Mahomes Reed team struggle like they have on offense. They got Pacheco out again this week, the running back. I know you like him a lot, and I do as well. I mean, he's an underrated quality running back. Juju looks like he's out for New England, which limits their already limited pass corps. So Zeke has been playing well. I mean, he did real well against Pittsburgh last week. So yeah, I think New England's going to come out hair on fire, try to put them away early and get back on the win track.
It'll be interesting to see what Mahomes does today and what they say after the game. See if there's a controversial call or a big call, and we'll see what they comment. I can guarantee you they're probably not going to say a word. $100,000 is a lot of money, even if you're a millionaire. I don't care. Even if you're filthy rich, having to write that check is probably really something. I'm sure their wives aren't happy about them running their mouths, nor would I be in that position either. So we're going to officially take Kansas City at -8 here versus the Patriots. All right, next game on the docket. My favorite team that is rolling right now. They're looking like the best team in the NFL. San Francisco 49ers are -11.5 versus the Cardinals. Last week, we saw the Niners cover. They were one of the wins for us with the system. We had them at 10.5. I know the line moved later in the week, but we got them at the right time. They were able to cover against Seattle in a game where they didn't really even play all perfect. They still made some mistakes, but still were able to win by double digits over that Seahawks team that's fighting for a playoff spot. Right now, this Cardinals team, I honestly think that they've been well coached this year, considering their roster and what's been happening to them. But I just don't know how much they really have to play for right now. And I think San Francisco, you're giving up 11.5. That's a lot of points. But what is Arizona going to do to stop this offense? And what do they have on offense that threatens the 49ers at all? I don't see anything. Do you?
Yeah, it's kind of the same spot where we had Arizona going to Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. It's like, well, what does Arizona really have to play for? And then, of course, they come out and just blow Pittsburgh doors off. I mean, you never know in the NFL. I think Arizona is a little more dangerous with Murray at quarterback now coming back. He's been there for what we have 4 or 5 starts worth, so should be shaking off the rust a little bit. Does make them a little more dangerous. A guy I was really impressed with when they played Pittsburgh is McBride, young tight end that Arizona has. He was a second-round pick last year. Pro Football Focus has him rated really high, and he just totally eviscerated Pittsburgh. I mean, they just went to him over and over. He's big. He's athletic. He really first time I'd even noticed him playing. He's a good player. Their wide receivers are kind of pedestrian. They got Marquise Brown. It just pales into comparison to what San Francisco has. I mean, they just have an embarrassment of talent on both sides of the ball. I was looking at the Pro Football Focus ratings today, and no one ever really talks about him because he gets pushed aside by the other guys. But Ayuk, they got him second best wide receiver in the league. I mean, he's a really good underrated receiver, and what is he, their third or fourth option on the offense? It's hard to go against San Francisco right now. They're rolling. They look really good. Arizona's offensive line probably has no chance really to hold up against this front on San Francisco. So yeah, we'll see. Division game could always be a little wonky, but hard to go against San Fran right now.
Yeah, 49ers, the only big injury they have right now is Eric Armstead's out again. A defensive lineman. He's a solid guy, above average guy. He's done well for us this year. He'll be out, but I don't think it's going to matter. We still got Javon Hargraves. We still got Nick Bosa. We still got those guys up front. We still got our linebackers. Dre Greenlaw is going to play. He set out most of the practices this week, but he'll be in there. Yeah, Murray can make some plays with his feet. I don't know. 49ers need to keep pace here. They're tied with Dallas and Philly for the best record in the NFC, but they have the tiebreakers over both. So all they have to do is take care of business the rest of the year. They get a the playoff week 1 bye, and then they get the lowest seed to come to them. This is their chance. We've been so close the last few years. We went to a Super Bowl a couple years ago, and because Jimmy Stinking G couldn't make one more throw, we don't come away with a win there. Get to the NFC Championship game 2 more times. We have an interception in our hands that probably would have sealed the game against Stafford. And if the guy drops it, thank God we cut him immediately after the season. And I think he's not even in the NFL now. And then last year, of course, we go to Philly. What happens? We're down to Christian McCaffrey playing quarterback because we got both quarterbacks out. Things have not worked out for us. They have just been one stupid thing after another. Kyle Shanahan, we love to talk about him all the time because he's a great offensive mind. He draws up these amazing plays. His run game creativity is out of this world. He just knows how to get the most out of his guys. And Brock Purdy, how can you not consider this guy an MVP candidate? I still see all these analysts saying he doesn't deserve it. I don't know how the guy doesn't deserve to be in the conversation to be MVP this year. Everybody's saying, well, it's going to be Dak. Dak's playing great. Don't get me wrong. I think Dak's playing out of his mind. But Brock Purdy is just leading this team. 49ers have the best record in the NFC against teams with a winning record, and maybe the NFL, actually. What do you think about Brock Purdy? You've seen him now. We've had him for, a full season of games, 17 games. We've had him for that now. And I thought for sure his play was going to fall off. I kind of wasn't sure that last year was for real. But now that I see him, I think this is really the guy. He is who he is. And maybe it's Shanahan, maybe it's him, maybe it's a mix of both.
Yeah, same. Last year when he came in, it's like, man, he looks good. Of course, for an undrafted rookie, he looked pretty good right off the bat, but it was always still like, there's no way this can keep up. At this point, I don't think there's any doubt that he's at least a really good NFL quarterback. His yards per attempt are just through the roof. The knock, which is he just has so many weapons. This offensive system is just so quarterback friendly, but there's just no way you couldn't just plug in a random Mitch Trubisky into this and it would be the same. I mean, there's just no way. He's really good. Give a guy in our betting group credit. He said it right off the rip. This guy's really good. And we was kind of like, no, yeah, we'll see. It's still way early. And he's like, no, I can see it. This guy just has it. And I've got to watch, you and I communicate almost every Sunday while we're watching the game. So I check out San Fran a lot while you're watching them. And yeah, he's impressive. He definitely should be in the candidate for MVPs right there, stat wise. I think they're clearly the most likely Super Bowl winner at this point. I mean, they're clear favorites in the NFC, especially if they can get home field. It's tough to see anybody going into San Fran knocking them off this year.
Yeah, I think it's next Sunday, 49ers will host the Ravens. That's going to be a huge game, but they can't look past this Cardinals team. This Cardinals team's had success against San Francisco while Kyle Shanahan has been coach. So this game, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a shoe-in, but I mean, I like us to win, and I like us to cover this game, 49ers to cover. Will they? Hey, maybe they win by 3 points because Arizona, this is their Super Bowl. And Kyler Murray wants to show everybody he's still got something. And this young coach wants to show his owner that he's deserving to stay. Who knows? But we're going to officially take the 49ers at minus 11 and a half here. And that'll be the fourth pick of the week. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens. They are going to Jacksonville, and they're giving up 3.5 points. Huge game in the AFC here. Huge playoff implications. But Bailey, you checked on some weather, and we might have another weather game here with these guys. I know that this time of the year, it's the wind, it's the rain, it's all kinds of things down south. What do we expect in Jacksonville?
Yeah, it's looking ugly. It looks like the rain's not going to be too much. It looks like most of it's going to be before the game. You never know. I mean, they're still 10 hours out, but it looks like the wind is going to be atrocious. They're talking 50, 60-mile-an-hour gusts at
Wow.
times, and really that affects the passing game more than the precipitation does. When it's that windy, downfield passing's almost impossible. Field goals extremely dicey at any time. So hasn't really changed the line. It's still 3.5 Baltimore. It's pretty much held there all week. I'm kind of surprised that Baltimore's laying over a field goal here at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's still a solid team. They didn't look great last week against Cleveland, but I think they're still a fringe contender. I mean, they're a solid football team for sure. Lawrence, we were scared of him last week being a little bit hobbled, but I watched that Cleveland game. He seemed fine to me. He moved around good, so I don't think there's any concerns there. Baltimore struggled a little bit last week against the Rams, so surprising that we're laying 3.5, but system likes it, so see how it goes.
Baltimore, the one thing about them, they haven't been consistent this year. They're winning consistently, but a lot of these games, just there's no reason for that Rams team to play them as tough as they did. You look at those rosters up and down, there's no way that Rams team should have come out. And really, they probably should have won that game. They had the chances. Baltimore just kind of hung around, and getting a punt return for a touchdown in overtime is something we never see. But they were able to get there. We lost that game. We had them -7, and they covered at 6, not 7. So that was one of our 2 losses last week. But I don't know what it is about them. They play Indy this year. They didn't play great. They lost the game. That Pittsburgh game that they played, that first game, we were talking. They should have won by like 3 touchdowns. What did they do? They dropped 8 passes, and they had just stupid penalties and touchdown passes in guys' hands that didn't come through. It's just weird how this team is so talented, but they don't produce what they should every week, even if they come home with a win. And this Jags team, they got to be desperate right now. With Indy continuing to win, and them coming up with some injuries and coming up short and getting whooped by the 49ers and getting whooped by Cleveland. I would think they're probably the more desperate team right now. And playing at home, this will be a big, big game. But man, 50 or 60 mile per hour winds, you can forget kicking field goals. If that's the case, you can just forget that I can bet there's going to be a lot of fourth down plays this week in Jacksonville, where these guys are going to be aggressive. And we know Harbaugh, he's always been aggressive. He's an analytics guy. He loves going for it when it tells him to do so. But Peterson's probably going to be doing the same. But I just think this Baltimore team is way too talented. I'll take the 3.5. Not real confident on it, but I don't know. I just think Baltimore has too much in the arsenal. And if they don't, then who knows about this stinking AFC? I mean, I can't. These guys just keep going back and forth about who the best team is, and Buffalo putting together wins and then close losses. We'll see, but we're going to take Baltimore -3.5. And that will be the 5th pick for the system this week. Last game, biggest game of the week, one that is going to get great ratings, we know, because America loves the Dallas Cowboys for some reason. They continue to draw high ratings, and this is I'm looking forward to this game personally because you got 2 really talented teams, and both teams need this game desperately. And I know Dallas wants to win that division. They want to get a home game. They want to, stay in first place there. But Buffalo finally got things put together last week. It came on a controversial call. Oh, well, this Buffalo team is still talented. This Buffalo team still got a lot going for them. And their defense is kind of underrated a little bit. Who do you see winning this one?
Yeah, system likes Dallas getting 2.5. Systems like Dallas a lot this year. I mean, they have some impressive wins where they just blow teams' doors off. They haven't been as impressive, even the last few years, as on the road. That's what makes this one kind of interesting. Is Dallas tough enough to go on the road, cold weather place? The weather looks decent, like maybe a little bit of rain, not super cold, but their home road splits the last few years, team wise and Dak, are just outrageous. Really, they just play so much better in Dallas in the dome. Buffalo's a good team. I mean, if Buffalo can sneak into the playoffs, I mean, you can't roll them out making a
No.
run to the Super Bowl. I mean, they're that talented. The Pro Football Focus has Dak #1 rated quarterback and Josh Allen #2. So it's going to be a fun matchup for sure. Yeah, system likes Dallas 2.5. So that's how we're rolling.
Yeah, uh, you have to go with, I don't know. As far as offensive weapons, I mean, talk about two teams that are pretty evenly matched. Two amazing quarterbacks, two really talented receiving cores. Offensive line wise, who do you go with there? I don't know. Dallas isn't the same Dallas offensive line that they have been in the past, but they're still really good. So I'd probably give them the nod. But one thing Dallas does is create turnovers. And one thing that Buffalo seems to do is turn the ball over, even when they shouldn't. We talked about this a week or two ago, where Josh Allen had the most turnovers in the NFL, but the second lowest turnover worthy play rate that there was. And we talked about CJ Stroud, about how CJ Stroud had the same turnover worthy play rate as Josh Allen, but had the least amount of turnovers in the NFL. There's so much about this, it's about luck. But if the ball's bouncing your way and you're a Dallas fan, you have to be excited about your opportunities and your chances, because these guys will pick the ball off and they'll take it to the house. They've got like 5 or 6 pick sixes or fumble sixes on the season. They score on special teams as well. You can get a score like that in this game, then you've got to feel good about your chances. I'm wondering who's more desperate right now. I always go back to that at this late in the season. Buffalo's got to be the more desperate team, but Dallas wants to prove that they're worthy. Dallas wants to prove that they're a Super Bowl team. They've not been able to get there, not been able to get over the hump. I don't know. This is a total toss up for me. I'm going to roll with the system. Dallas getting 2.5 points, but I'm not confident about it.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, just glancing at the game, if you didn't really dive in and just thinking desperation, I would maybe lean Buffalo. But I mean, the 2.5 points is a factor. Some people think like, oh, you're getting 2.5. They can still lose the game by 1 or 2 and you win the bet. And I figured this was going to be a close game. Of course, much rather be getting 3.
Right.
But I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a fun game to watch and could go either way.
Yeah, that's an exciting one. Hopefully, we'll have a good week of games here. A good week, a competitive week of games here. Now, yesterday Cincinnati game was great. I guess I didn't get the chance to watch that. I was coaching, but that was an interesting one. But these games the last few weeks, it's just been a lot of ugly football and a lot of things. A game here or there that's good. I'm hoping for a really good one this week. But that wraps up the 6 system picks. To recap, we're taking Atlanta -2.5, the Giants +5.5, KC -8, San Francisco -11.5, Dallas +2.5, and the Baltimore Ravens -3.5. But we're not done yet. We're going to talk about some of these other games, and let's head to Cleveland, where the Browns are home facing the Chicago Bears. It's Cleveland -3 right now. Joe Wacko for Flacco under center again. The old man still got a cannon and still getting the job done. And we got Justin Fields and Matt Eberflus heading into Cleveland. I don't know about you, Bailey. I've been impressed with this Bears team the last few weeks. They seem to start putting things together. And I thought Eberflus was done. I thought he was on the way out. But something seems to have changed in Fields lately. I saw a statistic over the last 7 games that Fields has played. He has 1 turnover or play. That's incredible. That is incredible for him to have 1 turnover worthy pass in that entire time, for a guy who's been knocked for his arm and his accuracy. I've seen some of these plays. Last week was a Detroit, I think they played. He drew the defense off sides and knew he had a free play, and he threw a dime, like 35-yard touchdown pass to DJ Moore. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you see out of veteran quarterbacks who can get you to the playoffs and win games.
Yeah, Fields is super talented. I mean, the talent's never been in question. He might be the fastest quarterback in the NFL. I mean, when he takes off, his acceleration, I mean, maybe Lamar is the only one that can compare. He's just so fast. And yeah, his arm, there was likewise was a play last week where he was kind of getting pressured, flushed out to his left out of the pocket and just kind of flung it out of bounds just as a throwaway. And it was like an absolute missile, like 30 or 40 yards downfield. Like, oh man, he definitely has plenty of arm strength. Bears are playing a lot better. They've won 3 out of 4. The one they lost was that Detroit game that we've talked about where they just completely blew it. Should have won that one as well. They are playing hard. Their offensive line struggles. It's not the best. That's going to be the big key today is how good they can block that Cleveland front, which is really good. Cleveland still injury issues. I mean, they got a couple more guys out this week. They got Delpit, the safety. Their tackle, DeJuan Jones, both out. They still have a lot of injury issues. Denzel Ward looking questionable. Not sure if he's going to play. That news should be coming out. But yeah. So what's the line now? Chicago's getting 3, 2.5.
It's 3 now, yeah.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Right.
I like this Bears team. They're playing good. This should not be viewed as an automatic
No.
win for Cleveland. I mean, Chicago's not as bad as they were led to believe earlier in the year. This is going to be a competitive game.
Yeah, and the Bears are a really good run defensive team. And, if they can stop the run and force the game on Flacco, then maybe they have a chance. He's playing well, but is he the kind of guy that'll sit back in the pocket and pick you apart? I don't know. I mean, last week he played well. I think he threw 19 incompletions last week. I mean, that's a lot. He's doing enough to get the games won. But if he's got to sit back there and, dink and dunk, 7-yard gain, 8-yard gain, 5-yard gain, 12-yard gain, can he do that? Or is he kind of just sitting back there and he's throwing balls away and then he's, throwing a deep pass for 40 yards? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But if the Bears can stop the run and if Fields can get free, if that Cleveland pass rush can get to him, he's going to have to be able to weasel his way out of that pressure and make some plays with his feet and keep them honest a little bit, keep them back a little bit. It ought to be a fun game. But at the same time, if they get to him and he can't get away and he can't throw the ball, they could win this game comfortably. I could see that happening. And if you're in Cleveland, you have to be happy about where you're sitting. One of our buddies that are in our betting group, he's a Browns fan, and he's the Bengals have been a thorn in his side. He keeps wanting them to go away, and they just refuse to go away. Now that Pittsburgh's kind of gone away, that's one less team that they got to worry about. But they need this win just like anybody else does. The Bears are more playing for pride. I mean, I guess if they win out, hey, maybe they could make the playoffs. But absolutely means more to Cleveland right now at home. We're not putting any money on this because we don't have enough information on Flacco. But I think this line is perfect, and I wouldn't touch this game otherwise.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of weather in this game too, particularly early. Some rain and wind. Looks like it's going to clear up in the second half. And a little storyline too is Fields played his ball at Ohio State, so coming back to Ohio, I'm sure he'll want to play well in front of the Ohio fans.
Yeah, and you know what? He's still got a lot of fans here in this state. I was at the NFL draft when he was drafted, and there were thousands of people there at the draft, and he got the biggest roar from everybody in the stands, out of the stands, walking in the street. They were broadcasting it. You could hear the audio, and everybody cheered for that guy. He's going to have a lot of fans in the stands tonight. So this will be a big game for him personally. It'll be fun to watch. I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on this one. I want to talk about a game that happened on Thursday. We talked last week about that 3-0 game, that Pittsburgh-Miami 3-0 game. And then we go on to shockingly have a 3-0 game in the NFL in 2023 indoors. Indoors, the Minnesota Vikings beat the Vegas Raiders 3-0. And I could not believe I remember messaging you and saying, is this real life right now? Is this actually happening? It was 0-0 in the fourth quarter. And, the Vikings come through and win that game. And then as this week's lines came out, as I was doing the numbers for the system, I thought to myself, are the Raiders going to come out and explode this week? traditionally when a team either gets blown out or they perform horribly on offense, the next week they're throwing the kitchen sink out there. And wow, did they ever against that Chargers team. I was not expecting 80 points in that game. I don't know about you.
No, I don't think anybody was. I mean, what was it at halftime? They had 35, it was 35-0, something like
42
that.
nothing,
And
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, how can you predict? That's the NFL for you. I mean, you think you know this stuff, you think you can predict it. There's never a sure thing in the NFL. Man, so our buddy Staley knew he was like on thin ice, and
Oh,
after that
yeah.
performance, they went ahead and let him go. Pretty much a no-brainer at this point. I mean, I like Staley. You know, his family's from the Ohio Valley. Pulled for the guy. Hoped he'd do well. Just hasn't clicked for them for whatever reason. The Chargers just underachieve, and that was kind of just the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, Chargers former head coach now, Brandon Staley, was fired yesterday or the day before. His dad's from East Liverpool. He graduated from Perry High School in Ohio. We talk about him a lot because of that connection. We always keep him in the back of our mind. Probably the most aggressive head coach there is as far as downs go. You know, him just not being afraid to go for anything at any time. I mean, there are times they're on their own 25 or 35 yard lines, 4th down and 7, and they're going for it. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, there's one thing to be aggressive and listen to the analytics. You know, are you going to jump out of a 10-story burning building because the path to the ground is quicker that way? I mean, give me a break, dude. Come on, man. Like, sometimes you have to know your own team. You have to know what you're doing in the situation you have with the team you have around you. I'm not saying that's the only reason for his, demise is just these ridiculous calls that he makes and tells the offense to go for it. I mean, Herbert, the guy looks great throwing the ball, but I don't know. I don't know that he's a top tier quarterback. Yeah, his numbers look good, but what's he do? What the heck does he do? What has this Charger team ever done for them to? They were continually favored almost every week this year. They're favored, and they're just not a good team. Staley was just not the coach, and the wheels absolutely fell off. And after the game, he was asked about the point differential, and I think he said something along the lines of, well, you've seen a lot of great NFL head coaches go through these kind of losses. And I mean, that's a delusional guy right there. If he's trying to compare himself to, a successful legendary NFL coaches, because he's not one of them. So I just wanted to touch base on that because they got absolutely blown out. And I think Pierce is doing a great job for Vegas. I think he can be their future head coach. And these guys are playing for him. I mean, that 3-0 game was obviously absolutely disappointing. But then to come out the next week and do this, he might have washed that 3-0 loss away. These next 3 weeks will be big for him and that team. I don't know that they've got their answer at quarterback, but the Raiders are an interesting team for these last 3 weeks. That's for sure. Let's talk about a couple of these other games here. We didn't do much research on these because the system didn't like them, so we weren't going to play any of these games. But one of them is Washington at the Rams. These are two teams that I see as pretty close, as far as talent and, what they can do goes. But, man, the Rams are a 6.5-point favorite today. I don't know if you've looked much at this, Bailey, but I was kind of surprised to see this line as high as it was.
Yeah, I think it's more based on motivation. I mean, the Rams are still right in there for a wild card, playing pretty well, really. I mean, they've won a few games. They beat Cleveland last week. They played Baltimore really tough. We had Baltimore in that game. Watched a lot of that game since we had Baltimore, and the Rams had a lot of success running the football, way more than I would have expected. Just down to down, plugging away 5-6 yards. It seems like they're playing motivated. I mean, they're playing solid ball. Where Washington maybe just playing out the string. They've lost 4 in a row. Everybody kind of knows the coach is on his way out after the year. So it's like, how motivated are they really going to be to go on the road? I think that is certainly baked into the line here for 6.5.
Yeah, that was a surprising one, and I think Ron Rivera is on his way out of that position there. I think he's done a pretty good job, all things considered. Not great, but not horrible either. I don't know that he's really had much to work with at the quarterback position. He's had a bunch of guys in and out of that lineup, but we talk about Sam Howell and how he's got some real potential there. So I think that they should give him another chance, but they've got to move on from Rivera. They got to make a decision there. I just got some news popped up on my phone. It looks like Jalen Hurts might not be playing in that matchup tomorrow night on Monday Night Football. The Eagles are 3.5-point favorites against the Seahawks, but I guess he's had an illness this week that hasn't gotten any better, and he might be out. That would be huge if so. Playing in this a game at Seattle, everybody knows the former Clink CenturyLink Field. I don't even remember what it's called now, but talk about a place that can get rocking and really disrupt your offense. You take a guy like Hurts out of there, that's a toss-up game for me.
Yeah, Philly's right in there for the wild card and for home field too. I mean, they really need to win. If they win out, they do get the division over Dallas with the tiebreaker. So they really need this win. I had not heard that. Geno missed last week. Smith, Seattle quarterback, he looking 50-50 as well. So we might have two backup quarterbacks going on primetime Monday night NFL football.
Yeah, if Smith doesn't play, that's a good point. Then who knows what happens there? I haven't seen any news on him. That'll be interesting to see. But that's another huge game in the NFC. Seattle fighting for their lives. Philly fighting for the number one spot. If Hurts can't go, who knows, man? That's a toss-up game there. But something we definitely should keep an eye out. We should keep an eye out on that. I'm not touching this game. The system said it was too close to call. And when it's too close to call, it means that we have less than 1 point of confidence on the game. So the line is probably right where it should be. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. All right, so let's head to our final segment of this show. We're going to go to Bailey's best bet. That's the first one we're going to look at. Bailey, your first best bet of the week was the Denver Broncos, and they had about 5 different ridiculous things happen that week to make them not cover. You went back to the well last week to take the Denver Broncos, getting points against that Chargers team. And not only did they cover, they won that game outright. I could tell you right now you're not going to pick the Denver Broncos because they already played yesterday. Who's your best bet this week?
Yeah, thankfully Denver's not available because they got their doors blown off yesterday. So nice, easy cover last week. I mean, start to finish. Herbert got hurt later in the game, which certainly helped, but Denver just cruised the whole entire game. So that was nice, easy cash. This week, a little bit tough. Going with the New York Giants. I mean, it's kind of tough to back a team that's not playing well this year, but they're playing much better lately. You talked about it where last year they kind of overachieved, won a few more than they did. I think this year they've kind of underachieved. They're probably more a middle of the road team. Playing well lately, though they're looking pretty good. And the Saints, I haven't seen the Olave news, but even if he does play, I mean, he's looking severely limited. Getting 5.5 in a game that's probably more like a toss-up. It's going to be our best bet this week is the New York Giants, 5.5.
I'm waiting for that Tommy DeVito Sopranos poster to come out. Everybody in New York, they're doing the Italian whatever thing that they do, but everybody is doing it there, and they love that kid. He's got some real momentum going with him. So Bailey's best bet this week is the New York Giants plus 5.5 at the New Orleans Saints. And every week we also do a teaser. And last week your teaser hit. That was a pretty comfortable hit there too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, we had Baltimore in one, so that was a little bit hairy going down the stretch. I mean, we needed them to just win the game, so it was looking a little questionable there, but they pulled it out for us. This week, we're going to go to San Francisco. So to remind you guys in the teaser, you take 6 points from the point spread in your favor. So San Francisco is minus 11.5 at a couple of the books there. So taking 6 off of there, we're going San Francisco minus 5.5 for one of the teaser legs. And then the other one, we're going to the Rams. I'm glad you brought that game up, Gary, because we wasn't going to break it down, but going with the Rams, I think the teams are just heading in opposite direction. Rams have won 3 of their last 4. The one loss was that real close overtime loss to Baltimore. Washington's lost 4 straight, ready for the offseason, ready to go golfing. Rams still have playoff hopes. I mean, they're right there in the NFC. So line is 6.5. Subtracting 6 points from that, it's just minus half point. So they just have to win the game. So Going San Fran minus 5.5 and LA Rams minus 0.5.
Hey, I like those bets. Two NFC West teams here, two teams that are playing well, like you said. Um, yeah, the Rams losing this game, that would be I don't know, that would be a pretty disappointing game for them. I do think they got the coaching advantage. It's one thing I didn't mention earlier. Sean McVay's a great coach. That guy does a nice job. He's been to two Super Bowls. He's won one. Uh, Even in years where they didn't have much going on, he got the most out of his guys. Last year was a just total train wreck for them with the injuries to Stafford and the receivers and their offensive line. This year is more of a year showing who he is and what he can do as a coach, I think, because he's getting the most out of a team that really just only has maybe a half a dozen really good or good players on their team. The rest of these guys are just a Jags, just a guy, or even below average guys. So I'm with you on this one. I like this tease. 49ers minus 5.5 and the Rams minus a half a point here. So you got San Francisco just to win by a touchdown and the Rams just to win outright. Let's hope these two cash. We went 5-2 last week, 3-3 the week before. So that makes us 8-3 on the year, 8-4 on the year, excuse me. So hopefully we can keep this up and you guys are joining in with us on at least on some of these bets. We don't get to every game because we don't bet on games as far as the system goes that the system doesn't have enough information on, or if they're too close. So if you're wondering, or we didn't mention your favorite team, that's why. But another good week here, Bailey. We're finishing up week 3 of these cherry pickers. I have a lot of fun doing these. We really appreciate everybody who's been tuning in. We've had really good numbers for being the only weekend show on YSN, I believe, the regular show, and the only Sunday show for sure. We're going to keep bringing you these every week here. So we've got week 15, 16, 17, and 18 left here in the NFL season, but we're going to continue through the playoffs too. And then hopefully, we've talked about this for years about starting to do the system with other NFL or excuse me, other football leagues other than the NFL. I'm sure you've heard that the XFL and USFL have now combined for what I believe is going to be called the United Football League, the UFL. We'll probably be doing some uh, shows about that. And then I'm definitely 100% going into the Canadian Football League this year. That's something that I liked as a kid. I used to watch that. Late night ESPN. I'd see these teams on this giant field with 110 yards and these huge end zones and the field goal posts where guys are running into it. And you're allowed to have multiple guys in motion at the same time. So we'll probably be going into that as well as the year 2024 goes on. But thanks everybody for tuning in. We're going to finish up this here, episode 3 of the Cherry Pickers. One thing we do need to mention is if you have a gambling problem and you feel like you need help, please feel free to call 1-800-GAMBLER. It is a free resource for you and to provide you with resources that you need as far as gambling goes. So for Jim Bailey, I'm Gary Altizer. Thanks for tuning in to Cherry Pickers episode 3. Good luck this weekend. Never bet more than you can afford to lose. We'll see you next week.